Welcome to our Photoshop G lessons, where we are going to learn about the pen tool. A few things before we get started. The pen tool is what we use to make cutouts. Now, you're probably like, what is a cutout? Cutouts are where we have our images that we like to use and we want to remove them from the background. Now, I bet you're saying, well, why can't we just use our selection tools like the quick selection tool or the lasso tool or the magic wand tool? And the reason being is that we don't have as much control over our edges when we use those selection tools than we do with the pen tool. So from this point forward, anytime that you are going to make a selection, you're going to use the pen tool regardless. If I end up finding that you're using the quick selection tool, not only are you not going to do well on your assignments, but I will force you to use the pen tool. With that being said, I don't mean that as harsh or as a punishment. It's just that we pride ourselves as a yearbook staff on our ability to create fantastic cutouts. And so it is important that that's what you're using, and that you're not using selection tools or the eraser in order to make a selection. So to get started, let's go to Classroom and we're going to pull down the image of the football player from our G lessons. And we're going to open this in Photoshop. Now, let's say, for example, that we wanted to use this photo in our spread. The first thing that we would always do is we would edit this photo and retouch this photo before we did any cutouts. So we would for sure sharpen. I would probably use my curve adjustment on this. It doesn't really need to be color balanced, so I wouldn't color balance anything. And it doesn't appear like I need to remove any blemishes. There's no red eye. Um, there's nothing that needs to be removed from his uniform. Nothing offensive, nothing needs to be added. So I would do any of those retouchings first before I even started to consider using my pen tool. So first things first, I'm going to show you how to use your pen tool, and then we will go back and practice. So I would encourage you before you, because some of you I know kind of like to do things while I'm doing them. I really would encourage you to just watch first and listen, and then go ahead and practice later. So the first things first is when you do a cutout, I cannot stress enough the importance of zooming in. If you do your cutout from back here, just like when we did our selections way back in Unit B when we put that puzzle together, if you're so far zoomed out, you can't do an accurate cutout based on the edges of the selection you're trying to make. So you have to zoom in. So I zoom in like tight, really nice and tight, to whatever I am going to be cutting out. And so obviously we're cutting the football player off of the background. So I zoom in nice and tight, and then I'm going to grab my pen tool. My pen tool is in the third section. It looks like an old school calligraphy style pen. So just go ahead and click on that. And then what we have when we use our pen tool is we have a combination of points, anchor points they're called, and lines. So I just want you to watch here before I get started. I try to pick a nice spot to start. And so what I do is I click to drop an anchor point, and you can see that there. And then what I do is I just go along until I hit my next point, and I drop another anchor point, which it will draw a straight line. Now, the thing to remember as you go along and do this is that if you go too far without putting an anchor point down, you're going to start having a real boxy cutout because all of these are straight lines. So far, I haven't shown you how to do a curve. So these are all straight, and I just am moving along, repositioning as I go, so that I can see, and I'm just dropping anchor points, essentially tracing along the outer edge of this football player. Now, eventually, I'm going to come to a point where it's going to make more sense for me to use a curve. And so I'm going to kind of pull this up and you'll start to see how this line starts to curve. Now, curves are the worst part about the pen tool. And I know when I first started over 10 years ago that using the pen tool was super frustrating for me. I promise that the more you practice, the easier it will get. So I'm going to show you this first before I say go pick up your pen and start trying. What you want to do with a curve. They're actually called Bezier curves. I just call them curves, but if you want to be technical, they're called Bezier curves. And so what I do is I click up where I'm going to drop my anchor point again, except instead of clicking and releasing, I click and I drag. And what happens here is that you get a curve. And what you want to do is try to line that curve up along the edge of that jersey. Now, the more you pull, you're going to see that you can either, make it stretch, you can make it curve one way. And like I said, this is the hardest thing to get kind of used to is using the curves. But once you get the hang of it, I use the curves more than just clicking and dropping. So real, not easy to do, but once you get the curve where you want it, let go. And now this is the part where you have to remember to do this, otherwise you're going to have issues. So we need to turn the curve off. Otherwise, the next time you try to click, you're going to make another curve. Do you see that? I just clicked randomly and I made another curve. We don't actually want that to happen. So to turn your curve off, you come back to that anchor point that you set and you hold your Alt key down and then you just click on that point and it converts it back. And now you can start going, clicking solid lines again if you wanted to. Or you could continue on and make another curve, adjusting to that edge, and then again Alt and click. So what I will tell you once again is that as I zoom out, you start to see all of my little anchor points that I'm working along here. So now it's your turn to try. Pick a spot that you want to start and then zoom in nice and close on your football player. And then, I guess I don't need to be that close. And then grab your pen tool and then start practicing. So you will go and you'll click, you can make straight lines, practice some curves. That's part of the reason I chose this photo as our practice. Not only can you practice curves on the shoulder pads, but you should definitely do curves on the helmet. So just start and keep going. The one thing to be mindful of as you are practicing your curves and your cutout is that sometimes it's okay to cut parts of the person off. And I'll show you what I mean here as I kind of go up and over their jersey, up along their neck. And obviously, I'm going a whole lot faster than you guys, and that's just because I have that much more practice. But don't stress. The more you do this, the better you will get at it, and it will become so much easier for you. So this is what I was saying, is that as I come up the nape of this gentleman's neck, there's no reason for me to go and cut out this little splotch of hair. If I do a curve here and just curve around his hair, no one's going to know that I cut that off except for me. And so that's totally okay. Feel free to do that because it's just fine. Don't stress out about that at all. So I am going to, I think, pause this video here. I think we'll stop this and we'll continue on in the next one because I need to kind of finish up this cutout and it will take a while. If you are doing a good cutout, I would say that depending on the size of the cutout, how big it is, whether it's an individual, whether it's an action shot, this we would consider an individual shot. He's not moving at all. There's no movement in this image, so I wouldn't consider this an action shot. Or if you're doing a group, one good individual cutout should take you an entire class period if you are doing it well. And that's including, getting it cut out and then also doing some touch-ups. It should take you at least an hour. If it takes you only 15 minutes, you're not doing a quality job. So just something to keep in mind if you get frustrated and you feel like it's taking a long time. The answer is that it should. It should take a long time for you to be able to cut this person out. Okay, so feel free to stop this video and then at least go around the helmet and down to this shoulder pad. And then what I'm going to actually do is show you in the next video how to come across and cut off this. Obviously, normally we would want to go all the way down his body, up inside his arm and down and trace that out. But for the sake of this lesson and the sake of time, we're not going to do that. So just go around his body, his shoulder pads, up over the helmet, down to this shoulder pad, and then you can wait here. And in the next video, I'll show you how to close off your path and then what we're going to do from there.